Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield presents Let's See What's Out There Loki, a weekly video stream and podcast currently focused on Marvel's Loki series, which is available to watch on Disney+. In this episode, we are going to have a spoiler-filled conversation around episode 4, the Nexus event, and our conversations will also probably include spoilers for other aspects of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So with that out of the way, if this is your first time here, welcome. Please do try and check out some of the other work on this channel. And if you like this, give us a like, consider subscribing, etc. And if you've got any comments, please put them in the comment section down below and we'll get to them on a future episode. I'm Keith Isles. I'm an independent filmmaker and lifelong enthusiast of cinema and television. And for this episode, I'm really pleased to be joined by a panel of, well, I would say equally enthusiastic, but we'll find out, but a panel of creatives. So first up, the host of the Premiere Scene website and YouTube channel. Please check out some of the work over there as well if you get a chance. Filmmaker and red carpet presenter, Claire Bueno. Hey,
Good
Claire.
evening, Keith. Good
Welcome
evening,
back.
World. I'm back. You're having me back. I can't believe it.
Well, you know,
you must be desperate, Keith.
No, not at all. Not at all. You're the you're the eye candy for this. You know,
oh, that is a huge compliment.
Well, I was going to say for this collection of burly middle-aged men, but I know
I'm in good company.
Yeah, I mean that for the utmost respect for any watchers who are already thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna put comments here because he's being un-PC." So,
well, we've known each other for a long time, so you can be as un-PC as you want. I'm not offended.
Exactly. I knew you wouldn't be, of course. But good to have you back. And are you well?
Thank you. I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, good week, and looking forward to hearing what everybody else's views are on episode 4. So bring them on, I say.
Yeah. Well, talking of being politically correct, we've also got returning the director of Rebecca Gold, the web series. Check that out also. I'm giving you guys a playlist as we go here. And the mega geek himself, Ian David Diaz. Welcome back, mega geek.
Just trying to push my face in there.
We managed to get you back, Ian. You know, it was touch and go there for a second, but we got you back.
Yeah.
Just when I thought I was out, they dragged me back in.
Exactly.
Just when they thought.
Actually, that's the worst one, isn't it? That one, the third one. But hey, such is life. But,
no! I love The Godfather Part 3.
You're the only one.
Me and Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
Indeed. I feel like we need a little bit of balance to the force here, and one who can always bring us balance is another filmmaker, our good friend Clive Ashenden. Welcome, Clive.
Hello. Still trying to conquer the world, Clive.
Well, it will be mine.
I think actually he's trying to save the world because he's Flash Gordon, quarterback New York Jets by the looks today. He's going to save us from the evil Ming the Merciless. God, we're a geeky stream, aren't we? And talking of a geeky stream, we are also an international stream because, as always, representing us from Stark Tower in New York is the co-host of the Let's See What's Out There podcast. Again, add it to your playlist. my good friend, Pete Mealy.
Geeky Stream is my online handle. Yeah. So
is Geeky Stream your online handle?
Yeah.
It should be. So there you go. We are all assembled again for the 4th week in a row. But this week we've actually got a special guest as well to join our team of Avengers here. We have someone who is very, very familiar with doing live streams, podcasts. He has his own YouTube channel, his own YouTube network with the Spacebook that covers things such as Doctor Who, Blake 7, the Orville. The list is long. It's really pleased to have him here. He is indeed Birmingham's King of the Geeks. It is Dan Hadley. Welcome, Dan.
Listen, I only agreed to come on here, everybody, because if I got to do the Birmingham's King of the Geeks and if I was the eye candy, what's going on?
Well, half the equation's not bad.
Thanks for inviting me, Keith. It's lovely to be here. Good to see you all and everybody out there.
It's really good to get you on. We've been talking about this every week, and I'm really interested in your opinion on this. We will get to that in a moment, but before we do,
Actually, can I interrupt?
Oh,
We have one more person joining us.
oh, we do. Hey! Barbara Mealy, how you doing?
How are you, Keith?
I'm well. How are you?
Good.
Yeah,
Meet the rest of the gang. This is Barbara, Pete's better half.
Hello, Barbara. Pete's better half.
Barbara.
Hi, Claire.
Much better in all respects.
yes, and also like Clive, big up on the comic books. So
Big up on the comic books and a fan of Loki, I believe, right? The Loki comic.
If Loki, if we ever knew his zodiac sign, he'd be an Aries like me. So
Hey, I'm an Aries.
hey,
There you go, the Ram.
yeah.
It's all about the Ram. That's what I tell them all. But anyway,
That's not terrible, likely.
What you tell all the girls, is it?
enough on that. So anyway, with our team assembled, let's have a quick recap, if you don't mind, Pete.
Not at all. Okay. We see Sylvie was taken by the time cops as a child, escaped, and grew up running through time. Time cops show up and put Loki and Sylvie in prison. Loki gets kicked in the nards by Sif. Sylvie convinces B-15 she's a variant. Loki gets kicked in the nards by Sif again. Sylvie shows B-15 her life before. And then Loki convinces Mobius that he's also a variant. And then Loki gets kicked in the heart as Mobius gets stick erased by the judge. Loki and Sylvie get brought before the Time Lords. B-15 shows up, asses get kicked, and the Time Lords are revealed to be robots. Loki is about to tell Sylvie that they will get through this together because he loves her, and the judge stick erases him. Credits. Post-credits scene. Loki's not dead. He's just in a foggy land with 3, maybe 4 other Lokis. Blackout.
Wow, I'm so glad you did that because I would have struggled. So
I actually think
well
that
done, Pete.
deserves a round of applause.
I think it does. Let's give Pete a round of applause. Let's do it. Why not? Why not, indeed? So sorry, Keith's trying to multitask again and not doing it very well. So this week's episode, as usual, was directed by Kate Herron. But this one was actually written by Eric Martin, who is part of the writing staff there. Eric's previous credits include Community and Rick and Morty. So every week I try and credit, these people for their work because that's what it's all about, isn't it? Before we get into the individual episode itself, I want to start with you, actually, Dan, as you're our new guest on here. I just wondered if you could just briefly sort of tell us where you are with the MCU, what your familiarity with the Loki character in the comics is, and how you feel about Loki, the series so far, please.
Well, Loki, the character, let's start with the comics, because I was reading the comics from the 80s. And Thor was a big favourite title of mine. Walt Simonson was on the book then. And it was a bit of a heyday for the Marvel Comics brand, to be honest, but particularly the Thor title. Lots of creative things were being done with it, both in the writing and the terms of the comic art. I think that Simonson is arguably, actually, yeah, after John Buscema is probably still the Thor artist. And he did a lot with the character of Loki to kind of develop him away from a standard sort of mischievous villain character. And so I remember certain trappings of that. But the character, yeah, in the time in between, I hadn't really given him a great deal of thought until the MCU started. And of course, I've been to see almost all MCU movies at the cinema. You know, I rushed to see Iron Man, absolutely loved it. And that initial cycle as they worked their way through, put the team together. And Loki obviously was a huge part of that. So I'm very, very fond of the character. I've sort of fallen out with the MCU in the cinema of late. I think some of the films, it's just been trailing off a little. Although I really enjoyed that last Spider-Man film, Far From Home. I really enjoyed that, the simplicity of that. But I feel it's getting a little bit bogged down, and it feels a little bit homogenized, the direction style. Mm-hmm. But you know, I'm in it, and I was really excited. When was it? It was New Year, wasn't it? So when 2021 began, and we're going to see this raft of new shows through Disney Plus. And I think the one that I was looking forward to the most was the Loki show, not least of all because I think Tom Hiddleston is great. You know, I've always liked him in this character. I think he was ripe for an expansion. The setup, I was already aware, chimed a little bit with another fictional universe, which does mean quite a lot to me. So I thought there could be something in that for me too. And yeah, I just think it sounded like it could be a laugh. Lots of untested talent as well. That appealed because, like I say, I felt that the MCU has of late got a little bland. When the series started, I was very excited, and I felt ultimately the delivery of it up to now has been somewhat of a mixed bag. Is that good enough?
No, that's a fair summary for us to start with. Barbara, I kind of want to ask you the same question because you're obviously joining us for the first time to talk about Loki. So obviously you've given us a lot of your opinion of the MCU and whatever in previous podcasts, which I encourage people to go back and listen to. But where are you at with this show so far, and what's your history with the character?
So I think I'm going to start with the last question. I have always been a huge Thor fan. I think probably because of what's her name? The movie where the little girl's obsessed with Thor. And
Adventures in Babysitting.
Yeah, Adventures in
I've never seen it.
I didn't think that was the right movie. I was like, those are books I read. But I think it was about the same age of that girl in the movie when, you know, I saw it. So we used to, I think I mentioned this before, we used to drive to Indiana every summer to see my mom's parents. And that's a 12 to 14 hour drive. And how do you keep 8 kids occupied? You buy a ton of comic books. So I was always a big fan of Thor starting from then. And Loki was always kind of a pain in the butt because he's, you know, always stirring up trouble. So I've really only come to appreciate him as a character now through the MCU film. And I think Tom Hiddleston is the perfect incarnation of Loki on the screen. So I was really excited that they were going to give him his own show, but I've been kind of holding my breath with the actual episodes, waiting for them to do something really interesting. And I think they gave themselves a really tough proposition, you know, like, let's get philosophical with a character who really just adds like lots of flavor to the movies, and because he's mischievous and unknowable. So now like they're trying to get into like what motivates him, and it's like, but do we really want that, or do we just want, you know, the flavor that like keeps things interesting and moving forward? So this last episode was the first one that I was actually like, oh my God, okay, what's happening next? And so that's sort of where I've been at with the show so far.
Okay, that's cool. I feel that I've got a feeling opinions are going to be varying here, which is a good thing because that's what makes for a great podcast and a great stream. So Claire, I want to start with you on this episode. You've been really enjoying this show so far. A lot of us didn't enjoy last week's quite as much, but you were, along with Clive, were very much a proponent for that show last week. So How are you feeling about this week's episode? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it feels like the last 3 episodes have been the setup to now the kind of the story really evolving. I really enjoyed the writing. Thought the dialogue was really clever, and I like the way they all kind of. It's nice to see Mobius and Loki kind of back together, and I think to sort of pick up on what you said last week, having him back and having that presence actually really does make a difference to the show, doesn't it?
Yes.
But I found it very exciting. I think we had a little bit of everything again, didn't we? A bit of action at the end, and again that kind of the dialogue and those 2 characters bouncing off each other, and it being a bit more of an intellectual show, really. I mean, for me, it probably, as opposed to Barbara, because I like the motivation and all, what drives a character to do what they do. I find really interesting. To me, it ticked all the boxes, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Cool. All right, Ian. I'm really curious. I know we kind of got you back here kicking and screaming.
Please, no.
So, and we had a few comments actually last week from the episode last week. Had a couple of comments agreeing with you absolutely, but we had another comment not agreeing. Well, actually, just wishing that you would provide a little bit more than just saying it's rubbish.
No, but I didn't do that though last week, did I, Keith?
Well,
answer the question. I didn't do that last week. I explained myself, didn't I? You can go back and look at that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm paraphrasing the quote.
Yeah, whoever wrote that obviously didn't watch it properly, because I did explain what I thought and stuff like that. I just didn't go, it was crap, and then finished. Do you know what I mean? Just didn't go, it was rubbish, and then didn't say anything else after that. Everybody knows I did speak my mind.
Well, to answer their question then, are you back here this week because I've asked you to be on the live on the stream, or are you, would you have stopped watching Loki if it wasn't for that? Yes,
I'm only here because you've asked me back, and I would have stopped watching this if it wasn't for this. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And has this week changed your mind any?
No, it's made it worse.
Okay. But no, fair enough. This is good. I've got to love this guy, too, by the way.
well, I got to speak my mind, didn't I?
No, I want you to. So, tell us, Ian, from your point of view. We'll all get our chance, but from your point of view, what is wrong with this? What made you suffer?
Well, same thing that happened in episode 1 to what episode is this? 4 and 3. Loki's the butt of every joke. Gets his balls kicked loads of times in this one from Sif. It's good to see Sif back though. Yeah, I kind of fancy her. She's lovely. So yeah, it's good to see her back. But she's only a guest star here, and Loki's a guest star in his own show, which is just it's very annoying. Plus, the origin of is it Lady Sif now? Are we calling her Lady Sif? Is not Lady Sif. I mean, who's the Lady Loki? What's her name again?
Sylvie.
We're calling her Sylvie, aren't we? We aren't calling her Lady Loki. Yeah. So basically, Lady Loki's origin was told, and she a little girl escaped when Loki, a huge man, couldn't escape. And last week we had that conversation between Loki and her, when Loki said his mum taught him this, and he didn't know he was adopted until he was told by his mum. And then Lady Loki says, well, I always knew I was adopted, and I learned all my powers by myself. Okay, Mary Sue, there we go. So, we have all these things that's happening in this show, and this one was particularly worse with the, men battering and making Loki look stupid. In fact, all the men look stupid in this. Even the fight, the ending, wasn't even focused on Loki at all. He was in the background while Lady Loki beat the crap out of everybody. And then, you have the bit where Owen Wilson is going, well, do you like her and stuff? And he was acting like a child. Oh no, blah blah blah, whatever. And I just thought, oh, for God's sakes, this is not the Loki from Avengers Assemble. It is not. This is basically some other kind of Loki, which I don't even recognize. He's useless. Do you remember in the Avengers, which I actually have here because I saw it a couple of nights? You remember in Avengers when he comes through the porthole, right? What was that noise? Comes through the porthole, and Barton tries to hit him, but Loki grabs his hand, and he can't move his hand because Loki's so strong. Do you remember that episode where they were in the supermarket and that big fat guy took him on, and Loki was thrown all around the place? This is not the same Loki. It is not the same Loki. So, in conclusion, this is a show made, I don't know, by intersectional feminists, basically. That's what it's made. It made all the men look crap. From the first episode to this episode, Loki's not even a star in his own TV show. He's pushed to the side for this new girl. And what more can I say? I just don't want to watch rubbish like this anymore. So there you go.
Okay, that's fair, Ian. And I think actually, which we'll get into, but I do think you raised some very valid points in your criticism there. You did, of course, mention that, yes, as a guest on this one, we had Jamie Alexander playing Sif, reprising her role from the Thor films, as well as she also was one of the guest stars in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. playing the
she was, yeah,
Sif, which I don't know whether that's still considered canon or not, but she appeared as that character in that. And of course, more recently, people might know her well from the TV show Blind Spot, where she played Jane Doe, the main character in that, which I have to admit, I really enjoyed the first, I think, 3 seasons of, and then I kind of lost track with it all. So,
also, just
another thing.
One more thing, right? Just one more thing. Do you remember Loki killed Coulson? He pushed his spear right through him, killed him, pulled it out. Yeah. Tell me that Loki with this Loki.
Yeah. Which, by the way,
right. not the same.
Was edited for the UK Blu-ray release, but
it's in this one.
That's a whole other thing.
It's in this one.
Exactly. No, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Clive, I know you've been a big fan of the show so far. How are you feeling? Have you got any sort of instant reactions to what Ian said there, or any of your thoughts about this show and where it's at?
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff Ian was kind of saying about how Loki was always being hit, and I guess it's humor. If it's not landing with you, then it's not going to land with you. Well, I thought it was funny.
You thought it was funny that he got kicked in the balls like several times.
Yeah, I did.
If it was reversed and it was a woman, and a man was abusing a woman, would you think that was okay?
That's not the tone of the scene, though, is it?
Oh, but it is, though, and you just don't see it, Clive.
Do you think, though, if they were to show Sylvie being put in a, like, what did they call
didn't, did they?
But if they were to, they absolutely would have had a guard hitting her, because
but they didn't, though, did they?
More dangerous than Loki.
Do you know who directed this?
Kate Herron.
Yes, and what is she? She's bisexual, is she? Bisexual?
I believe so.
Sexuality matters the plot of the show.
Yeah, so there was this tweet that she made. She said, "From the moment I joined the Loki, it was very important to me that my goal to acknowledge Loki was bisexual. It is part of who he is and who I am. I know this is a small step, but I'm happy and my heart is full to say that this is now canon in the MCU, Loki." Now,
that's what they were sort of hinting to on Lamentus.
But he's not bisexual. He's not bisexual. He has the power to change.
They never confirm or deny that in the comics. It's a
he was never bisexual in the comics. Only recently, when
let's take this offline. We can chat about this and send each other comic references.
Well, yeah. I don't really want to argue.
But to keep that on topic, in fact, does that actually matter?
Of course, it matters. How can it not matter? I love Loki. I think Loki character is great. But what they've done is made him into a clown, smacked him around every episode.
So all bisexual were clowns. That's what you're saying?
I'd like to know, Keith, if she would have taken the job if there hadn't have been a option, a platform, and a viable candidate for her to express her gender politics through that character. Would she still have taken the job on Loki, on this production? I know we'll never know that.
Good question.
I'd be interested to speculate. I don't know the lady's other work, so I don't know if this forms. I don't think she's got much work behind her. Whether this forms an arc, if this is a natural sort of trajectory for her, if this is how she chooses her work. And I'm curious as to her motivations, and I personally believe that an agenda may indeed be affecting the editorial stance of this show and becoming before the entertainment value. And that's the only thing that interests me. I don't need to see myself represented in every single character myself. I, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's been established for over a decade that Loki is bisexual in the comics, and that doesn't bother me either. But but the way that it's written, I think this show, whilst I think some of the dialogue is quite crisp and quite funny, I think that the mechanics of it, the nuts and bolts of it, show an agenda. The blueprint is there. I suspect that the intentions behind this aren't pure and aren't with the viewing public and entertaining those people as her prime concern, and therefore I don't approve. I don't approve of that.
Yeah, no, that's I
It's okay. It's not a personal attack on anyone. I don't mind if people like this show. It's fine, but it's not for me. It's not for me for the reasons why I said. And if you disagree, it's fine. I keep saying this every week. It's fine. I will not hold it against you. You know, I love Clive and I love Pete. You know, Pete disagrees with me. I don't care. I still love Pete and I still love Clive. Doesn't matter. This is what it's all about. It's disagreeing and talking and, do you know what I mean? And discussing. And this is what fandom's all about, you know?
No, absolutely. It's all about the discourse with this sort of thing, and that's fine. So sorry, Clive. I feel that you kind of got railroaded there a little bit. So
a little bit. I will just say that this idea that this is somehow a new thing that creators, when they come in to work on a show with their directors or writers or whatever, you know, that suddenly people are bringing in politics into their entertainment, or are bringing in, you know, their own, gender or sexuality or personal experience. That's always happened. We've just maybe not always been aware of it. We've maybe not always had the creators coming out
measured.
And saying it.
It's always been a measured quota, Clive, not the overriding editorial standard.
Well, I think that very much depends on creator to creator, but yeah.
I think I was just reading something this week about how for the past 50 years in comics, you know, minorities and their viewpoints were getting expressly silenced by the majority, the main comic book distributors and publishers. Like you couldn't get those storylines in.
Silenced, Pete, or just not expressed? You know, there's a big difference. Actively silenced.
Actively silenced. They would bring their storylines to Marvel. They would bring them to DC. They would say, "Hey, I want to do this with whoever they were writing." And the powers that be in those companies would say, "No, we're not expressing that," right?
Because they knew it wouldn't sell, and it's been proven it doesn't sell. You know, every new comic that's come out so far with that kind of politics in there hasn't sold. It basically, they've all bombed, and now the comic industry doesn't exist. Marvel is on its knees. DC's on its knees since they introduced this stuff in the 80s. They started in comics and books in the 80s, and now they've reached the top, which is entertainment, and this is what they're doing.
I feel like you're moving the goalpost, though, right? Like when we try to make headway on one topic here, right? Like let's focus on, we're saying like, hey, these stories now are coming in because and you can't say like, hey, this is not how it was in the past. And that's because
no, it wasn't like that in the past.
Please let me finish, right? The reason that it wasn't like that in the past is because anytime anyone wanted to tell that story, they were prevented from doing so.
Because
right?
they knew it wouldn't sell.
I had no idea about that.
Oh,
I had no idea that that was a thing, and that's a great shame. It is. I mean, the idea that somebody came to them with, as Pete was saying, creative ideas. Yeah, obviously that shouldn't have happened. I'm not sure what's gone on since. Overcorrect. I don't know, and because Ian's right, it doesn't sell, but
it doesn't sell.
To stifle people's creativity is a great shame. I agree, Pete.
Right.
I disagree that it doesn't sell. Like we've got an explosion in comics right now.
No, right? The comics are dead.
Please let me finish a thought, Ian.
Okay, go for it. Go for it.
We have an explosion in comics right now.
We do.
Not just because it's going in the movies and stuff, but because these movies, TV shows are reaching out to more people. More people are going into comic book shops. I think if you want to pull up numbers that say, oh, the comic book industry is flagging, those numbers are not looking at like what COVID, what Amazon, what all this stuff has done to brick and mortar stores. The fact that, the comic book distributors, there used to be 3 different comic book distributors that independent shops could buy from. And now there's only one. That has nothing to do with the storylines.
Yeah.
That has to do with like business and how that stuff is going. And if you look at like actual interest, actual fan interest in sales, that's regardless. You can't assign one thing to another thing. And also, right, again, if we're talking about the storyline and we're saying like, hey, this is the reason that the storyline wasn't there, then you can't turn around and say like, well, that doesn't matter because they're not selling anyway. Like 2 separate conversations, I think.
Yeah, I think for the purpose of this stream, rather than yes, there's a much bigger picture and a much bigger argument here about this thing, but let's just rein it into Loki, this show, right, and how it's working for this show, right? So it's not working for Ian. On
third time's the charm here. Clive,
sorry, what you say, Pete? What you say?
I'm saying Clive now, third time. What did you think of the
Clive?
Yeah. No, it's just that I want this to be balanced so that we get all opinions and everybody gets a chance. So, Clive, you are enjoying the show, or I'm guessing you're enjoying the show. You understand exactly what Ian's saying about some of the political messaging behind it and everything, but that's not necessarily taking away from your enjoyment and your being entertained by the show, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I know it was very mixed reaction to last week's episode, but I thought it was great fun, and it reminded me of some recent sort of Stephen Moffat written Doctor Who. It had very much that vibe to it, but I thought as I was watching it, this is a bit of fluff. It's almost like a side quest, right? Where it's just get to know Sylvie, and we didn't get any Mobius, we didn't get any sort of time cop stuff, and then it's sort of like, for me, this episode 4 like completely redeemed that, or another way, sort of showed what they were doing there, right? Because none of the sort of big like holy shit moments in this episode land if you don't have that previous episode, for me, because you have to care about Sylvie, and you have to care about like Loki's relationship with her, and if you don't. And because I think we've had enough of Mobius, to really like him and Loki together. So then when you get that sort of like, or when you put those things together, and we get the revelations about Ravonna Renslayer, which various of us have kind of put our hands up and gone, oh, she's a wrong un, like from quite early on, because there were hints, right? But I've thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I thought, and I was like, wow, okay, they went there as well. I mean, obviously, when people get killed in Marvel, you're sort of like, you go, oh wow, and then you expect them to sort of to not stay dead. You know,
It's not just Marvel either, is it, Clive? It's
everywhere.
Doctor Who. Yeah, they're doing that all the time, right? So
Star Trek.
Right,
Star Trek as well, yeah.
absolutely.
Even Star Trek, and they would never. Oh, actually, maybe they would.
They just took the part and
Star
brought
Trek
it
kind of
back.
started it.
Yeah,
To be fair,
I just
Star Trek started it, but it actually worked.
Well, they
but
destroyed Doctor Who, didn't they? So there you go.
Yeah. So Pete, last week you weren't loving it. How are you? What's your thoughts after this week's episode?
Absolutely. So last week I did feel like that episode was an entire waste of time, and I was angry at it. This week's episode I thought was great, and I was super jazzed, and I was super into it. I think something, Clive, you just said like really resonated with me because of like the love interest thing that they did between Sylvie and Loki. That sort of made me like, okay, that was the rationalization for having them do this side quest. But I think that I still don't think you needed last week's episode to do that. I think that we could have spent that hour somewhere else and been just fine, right? I think that if we go back to our predictions from last week, I said that they were going to get right out of the danger zone, and they got right out of that danger zone, you know? And so yeah, I think it was pointless. I think that the way that they did the reveal of having B-15, the time cop, find out that she was a variant, right? Like, I don't think you needed Sylvie saying it last week for that scene to land. I don't think you needed any of the train banter between the Lokis for the Loki love thing to land. Like, literally, if they just did that, like, honest to God, if they could just cut out the episode 3 and they had episode 2, Loki's disappeared through the tunnel thing, right? And then episode 4, we see girl Sylvie, right? Young Sylvie. And then they're back to the beautiful shots of that planet disintegrating. And they just have one line, which is like, well, I'm out of battery juice on my time pad, and this world is going to die in 30 minutes, and there's nothing we can do. Like, I think that there is enough natural chemistry between two Lokis that you don't need 30 minutes of filler. But ignoring that, I think that this episode worked and had me jazzed and had me wanting more and wanting to see more. And now, like, I am still slightly angry that we could have had an extra hour of this, but instead we had an hour of train garbage.
Okay. And Barbara, you've obviously only just finished watching the episode when this stream was starting. So do you concur with that? Are you on board as far as this goes at the moment?
I want to clarify a little bit. So, Claire, I do also really enjoy finding out like what's motivating characters. I just think that Marvel is really shitting the bed with this show. Like they have not found a good balance between like Peter, I do agree. Like, we've had so much time just talking and philosophizing, and it's like, but people like Marvel because of the action and the witty banter and stuff. And Loki's like the epitome of that, you know, essence. So I think the reveals have been like really clunky. So yeah, I agree. Actually, I think it would have been nice we could have had like move the plot forward another half hour, rather than like all this time wandering around Lamentus. Like, oh, we're gonna get off this planet. Okay, we have a solution, but let's talk. Oh no, that solution didn't work. We have to find another way. Okay, back to talking. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, I thought last week's episode really jumped. Or should I say just each other? Sorry?
I mean, going back to what Clive said, really, how would they guys hopefully now trust each other, and we have to see that play out to make it more kind of plausible, surely.
We need the stuff about the Asgard gods to be more plausible. Sorry.
She's frozen.
I think
She's
Claire's frozen.
Oh,
Yeah.
Claire?
Well, we want to tell you a story, yeah.
say that again, Claire.
I can't, which bit? No, just that for picking up on what Clive said, really, that last week was about these two kind of building a relationship and us seeing how they can trust each other or whether they can't trust each other, and giving us some sort of backstory, basically, to set up for where they're going to go moving forward. I think we needed to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could have gotten that by. Sorry, am I jumping on you? No, I think we could have gotten that by expanding the fight in the time central station, whatever that's called, right? Where we had that scene where where Sylvie was just walking through killing time cops, and Loki was like do behind her. If that had been like together, I would have like you got it there, right?
Personally, I think that those dialogue scenes, though, particularly right in the middle, in the dead center middle of the series, like Claire was saying, I think that those are kind of the hub for the entire arc of the thing, and I think that dialogue and those scenes were really important to be fairly, if not sedate, because they're two quite charged characters, but a kind of head to head without any of the physicality involved. But I think that those were right scenes to keep in. But I think because it's a very, very talky show, they seem like just one long set of talky scenes where there'll be 3 or 4 minutes later there's another long talky scene, and then another, and there's another. There's an overabundance of that kind of material in this, and that, for me, I feel that's my problem with the series up to now. I feel the pace of it is off, just like I felt with Winter Soldier and WandaVision. I feel we've got series and concepts and arcs and stories that are 3 episode things or 3 hours worth of entertainment stretched out into 6, and I feel the structure of it. I think the structure of it is structured like a film, and that's why those scenes, in my view, stood out. And the fight scenes, obviously, the set pieces are important. You get those in films. I think they're missing the mark with this. I think they're making TV like a film, and they're just chopping it. They're making lots of it and not self-editing at all, and they're just chopping it up into reasonably digestible chunks and thinking that will work. Whereas I think that making TV and making film are more different than they have taken time to work through. The Netflix Marvel shows didn't have this problem. Yeah. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was a confectionery in many respects compared to this. It wasn't aiming to say anything particularly profound. And I think there is something profound in this show that is worth hearing. There's some great value in seeing those two characters. And I know, I appreciate everything that Ian was saying. I personally am enjoying the development of Loki himself. I'm not entirely sure about where he's going exactly, whether I approve of that, but I like the development of it. But yeah, I feel that they're missing. I don't know if the projects haven't spent long enough in development, or they haven't got the right people on them, or if they're just trying to stretch it out. They didn't have it. Disney didn't even have this problem on The Mandalorian. That was kind of like every episode felt like an event. So why doesn't this?
Do you think that they don't, like, either, like you said, Dan, they either don't have the right people on it, or they're not spending enough time? Because, like, I'm not a comic book writer or a TV writer, but I was thinking, like, how would that scene be more interesting? Like, if they were doing it in a comic book, they would have, like, side-by-side panels, like, okay, conversation initiates on the train, right? And then side-by-side panels of the two Lokis going through the same experiences, as kids, as, like, playing tricks, getting away. And then, like, all of a sudden, they come back to the train, and like Sylvie has her hand on Loki's arm, and then it's like, "Ooh, what are we doing?" You know, and like, okay, great, chemistry connected. Let's move it forward.
I enjoyed this episode. I mean, last week I thought was absolutely diabolical, and as a piece of television for entertainment, if you want the honest answer, I fell asleep. But this one did kill. I wish I was joking. This one did keep me entertained. It kept me going. It kept me, and by the end of it, I really did want to see what happened next.
This is
At the same time. I beg your pardon.
No, this is the first episode in the Loki run where I've done like a 30-second rewind at different times because I've been like, I got to see that again, right? Like, I know that there's so much in. And I haven't, and I've been like, let me see it more. To sort of, sorry, Keith, if I'm going off topic here, but to sort of like rehash, I think what Dan and Barbara are saying is that I think that the MCU TV shows have been at their best when they are doing stuff that's revolutionary or breaking the mold. You know, like the first 3 episodes of WandaVision, I was like so intrigued and so with it. And that's something that you would never have seen in an MCU movie, right? I know Barbara's looking at me like that because the first one I was like, I don't know what
you were like, what is this garbage?
Yeah.
I have to watch the second one.
But right, like I got into it because they were breaking the mold.
It was creatively interesting.
Interesting.
Hey, it started us all being here now for this.
Yeah.
Essentially. So
exactly. And with the Falcon and Winter Soldier, it was super rare, but I think we had moments where they did interesting things. But for the most part, like Falcon and Winter Soldier was just, like Dan said, a really long Marvel movie, and it's like Peter Jackson did Marvel and they cut it up into hour-long chunks, right?
I think their instincts are right. This was the right kind of show. This romp with those 2 charged characters and that kind of friction of romance in the dead center of it. This was exactly the right kind of show to put out after those 2. It's just, I just wish there was a bit more TLC.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, I thought last week's show really jumped the shark, or maybe it was jumped the arc would be a better term for last week's. But yeah, I have to say, I've got to be honest, I'm not loving it at all. I am really struggling with this. There are other shows out there that I enjoy so much more and would so much more rather talk about than Loki, if I'm honest.
Last episode?
Sorry?
Even this last episode?
This last episode for me, and this is going to be very controversial because I know I've got 3 mega fans of this on the stream here. Is why I hate. Everybody knows that, and Clive was the first person that challenged me with this. Actually, he said, "Keith, you're this massive sci-fi fan. You like all these sci-fi movies and TV shows, but you don't seem to like Doctor Who. You know what? Why is that?" And I even went on a podcast that Clive used to do about Doctor Who years ago. It was my first experience with podcasts. Actually, we'll have to put a link to it in the notes, where Clive and Rob Wickens, who ran the podcast with him, challenged me to watch certain episodes of Doctor Who, and I had to pick some of the classic ones that I did like. But
I cannot believe I've never heard of this podcast.
Oh yeah, no, it's funny. But without going too much off topic here, my problem with Loki is, to me, this feels it just gives me the same feeling and has the same feeling is the only word I can use, because it's the only because if I say it looks like it or it's the same as it, obviously people would disagree, and I get that. But there's something about the vibe of this which is so Doctor Who that came back in 2004 or whenever it was, that I've never been able to get into, and I'm finding it with this. I am struggling to get through these episodes because I don't like the humor, I don't like the tone, and
Oh,
it's
thanks,
just
John.
I'm just really struggling with it, and we've lost Claire temporarily.
I mean, personally, it's obvious that I disagree with everyone who likes this show. I think this show's terrible, absolutely terrible. And as I said, politics is playing right through it. You know where I stand on that. I think it spoils my enjoyment. There should be a good balance between what happens between all the characters. Loki should be the man that we see mostly on screen. All those kind of things. And I agree with Keith that the show it doesn't do anything for me. And that's the thing. So anyway, let's hoping the next Marvel venture will be better than the last three.
Right, but am I mean, this thing about Doctor Who, is this just some weird thing in my head, or is anybody else?
No,
depends what episode you watch, mate.
Right.
Depends what episode you watch.
I agree with. Sorry, someone's saying.
I'll look it up.
Okay.
Take it, Clive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, Keith, that it sounds like the reason you dislike this show is the reason I like it. If you see what I mean? Because basically, it's like it's like we agree like about a lot of things. It's just I like those things, and you strongly dislike those things. If you see what I mean. So I think for me, it does really feel like modern Doctor Who, only with more of a budget.
I don't think it's like Doctor Who at all, personally.
It hasn't got the warmth of Doctor Who.
No, it hasn't.
Well, I agree to disagree there, but I particularly for me it feels like a lot of the modern series, and especially the sort of the flirty banter, the funny sort of quippy lines, obviously the adventuring through time. They're doing it deliberately, I think.
Okay,
I think they're stealing the Missy and the Master arc from series 10 of Moffat Doctor Who clearly.
I was going to say I'm interested, Dan, because you actually and you run a Doctor Who podcast, right? The Type 40.
The host of Type 40.
So you talk about Doctor Who on a weekly basis. I know the show inside out, back to front, all of that.
Clive's not wrong. It's they've been watching Doctor Who. Absolutely, that's a touchstone for this. And one of the reasons why I'm a little bit about it is I've seen this done before with, albeit in reverse, with the female Master Missy and John Sims' Master when they brought him back. And again, that was to show how far the character of Missy, who was played by Michelle Gomez, had travelled in her time on screen. She was in seasons 8, 9, and 10. And so it was a similar sort of thing. They were trying to develop that character by showing her in stark contrast to a version of her from before she went on that journey, on that process. And they put them against one another. There was the same sort of weird sexual attraction between them. Absolutely, they're trying to do that. They're telling the same story, kind of. I think this is actually going somewhere else ultimately, because I don't think that she's Lady Loki after all. But that's probably another.
What happened to in episode 2 where she set off all those bombs and all spikes came down? What happened to that?
Thank you, Ian, because that was one of the things I was going to bring up. Is I thought, is this just me, or is this a plot point that they completely dropped? So at the end of episode 2, they sent all of those stolen reset charges to various points along the sacred timeline to create and activate all these numerous branching timelines and throw the TVA into, disarray or whatever. And then she and Loki teleport off. And of course, we then get Lamentis, which is that side episode that we all loved last week. But when they picked it up this week, I was expecting it to pick up with all hell breaking loose and all of these timelines forming everywhere. But they seem to drop that. Is that just me, or did they miss something there?
I think that they definitely have not picked it up after putting it down yet. But I think that based on the fact that last week, what happened last week sort of paid off this week. I don't think we can rule out that they've just dropped that whole storyline until we watch the next 2 weeks.
Sure. Okay. And I'm not saying it's all bad, by the way. I thought that the B-15 character, kind of finding out more about her past. I noticed they didn't show us it, but the acting was good enough.
Shame, yeah.
Told us everything we needed to know, basically, to fill in that gap. I thought that was quite an interesting concept, but we'll get further along the story, and I can really say about where I've got some issues there. But Claire, I just want to check: are you still with us? Because I know you had some connection issues.
She still has. Looks like it. She's still got problems.
Okay, Claire. Let us know when you can reconnect, because I do want to ask you some more stuff. But
when StreamYard decides to misbehave, it's a real pain in the bum, isn't it?
Yeah.
we had a really hard time with it last week, didn't we, Ian?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Sometimes this happens. So I just want to talk then. I don't want to necessarily jump to the end, although I'm totally doing that with this post credits shot here. But does anybody? I'm sure that this is a talky point. Has anybody got thoughts on this? I mean, that's Richard E. Grant we've got there, right? Dressed as a sort of classic Loki,
comic Loki.
Right? Yeah. So I don't know much about Loki in the comics, so I'm keen. What are your thoughts? We can backtrack to other things in the episode, but let's jump right ahead to the this post credits image here. And I just wondered, what are your thoughts on this? What is all this about? Where do you think this is going?
Loads of Lokis. The League of Lokis.
Into the Loki-verse. That's what they're doing. I mean, basically, it's multiverse storytelling, isn't it? Because the whole thing is like the sacred timeline. There can only be one true timeline, and they're breaking it. Because these are all essentially alternative reality Lokis, right? So it is the Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse thing. So yeah, but the question is, it's like we've now seen at least a couple of variations. Well, maybe you could argue 3 on Loki. Is he? We've got like full on evil Loki. We've got kind of like in the middle, bit of a trickster Loki, and then we've got the Sylvie character who initially, we're not sure about, and now seems to sort of have this sort of crusade to sort of take down the TVA. So the question is, where are they? I think it's a more interesting question than what's going on with these Lokis.
Yeah,
I mean that's where all the Lokis go when they get zapped. Maybe when they get zapped, that's where they go. I don't know. Maybe.
Is that Stark Tower behind them?
I don't know. Let's have a look. No.
I'm wondering, have they gone into the Avengers film timeline?
Can you make it bigger?
No.
Okay. I don't think it is.
Okay. No worries.
I've got
Claire.
Claire.
Hey, Claire.
Hello.
Hello.
Recently back. I'm trying my best. I'm so
Oh God.
dropping off. My network friend of mine who I've got to credit, Tony Beresford, better known as the Buster, with you all, because I thought.
Oh dear.
Claire, is this your way of telling us that you're a variant and they've come to? have they come to get you? I hope they haven't come to get you, because it would be a great shame.
Oh dear.
Sorry, Claire, it's gone again. Anyway, sorry. Is that a crocodile or an alligator or something?
I think it's a
It
croc.
looks like an alligator. Oh, I was going to say an alligator.
Do you-
It looks
oh,
like
right.
it's got
Well,
the, got the, yeah.
Looked a bit
But
like
I'm no expert. I'm no David Attenborough, believe me.
Is it like it's because their nose? If their nose point up, is that crocodiles? Or
No,
then
we're
if
from
their
New
nose
York,
point
I
not
down?
thought
Florida.
if it's a broader nose, isn't that
Oh.
alligator?
Oh, right, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I,
And is that a black Thor as well in the
Yeah.
picture? Or is that a different
Yeah.
character?
no,
I
it's.
wondered
I
if that
think
was
it's supposed to be a
another
Loki.
or a Thor.
They're all
I
Lokis.
think they're all Lokis.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think
right,
That's what I
okay.
couldn't understand.
Yeah.
Why it would be a Thor.
He's credited as boastful Loki.
Boastful Loki.
Boastful Loki. Okay, interesting. But yeah, I mean, I have no idea. You know, it's gone a bit bonkers, so I have no idea where that's going to go. And hopefully it'll be somewhat satisfying. But,
Hopefully, it will be fun, Keith. I think that's what I wanted from this show more than anything else. I mean, it's up for me. It's up to me to manage my own expectations. It's all on me. But I wanted this to be a romp. I wanted some fun and games. And although I wanted the character to evolve, I like that Loki is evolving. A bit of mischief, and I think Ian's right. I think that we are seeing Loki himself turned into a bit of a chump. And if that doesn't change in the next 2 episodes, again, they'll be letting the viewers down because, introduce new characters and stretch the ones that we know and take us somewhere that we haven't been before, by all means. But we need those air punch moments. We need to see some of the remnants of the character that we loved seeing getting sort of smashed into the floor by the Hulk and all the other things that we've seen him go through. He has to remain at its core something of the same character. And yeah, I think you can't let your audience sort of stagnate with the show when it's paced like this. It's a total. Say we have how many? 4 episodes, so we're 2/3 of the way through. I'd like to think that it's going to rally for these 2 episodes. Well, I'm here for the duration, watching them anyway. So it's a good time.
Claire has actually texted me because obviously she's having problems with her connection here, but she has said what she was trying to tell us was a friend of hers called Tony Beresford suggested the TVA logo, when seen upside down, looks like Valhalla is the Norse afterlife. So could this be Loki in purgatory? I think that's an interesting theory.
Yeah,
maybe. Who knows?
Maybe. All right. So
my problem is that I don't care at the moment, and I should. Well, as interesting as that is, I wish I cared a little more.
Okay.
But
well, I have to get to what for me was the elephant in the room about this episode, which made me groan and roll my eyes and just, was this
well, it was the whole episode, but no,
because the episode had good points, but like I said, I really like the stuff that's going on with B11 B15 and all that stuff. But when they finally confront, or they finally get in front of the timekeepers, for me that was just laughable that these things are animatronics, like from a Disney theme park. And I'm going to share it. I'm going to do a screen share here. I'm sorry. This is what it made me think of. This is a scene from Blackadder's Christmas Carol, where he goes to the Ghost of Christmas Future, right? And I'm sorry, but that was just what that scene made me think of. I know some people say it's like Bill and Ted as well when they get brought in front of the judges or whatever. But I just found that. I just groaned. I just thought, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Again, am I the only one that's got a problem with this, or was that crap?
I thought it was old. I thought it was old hat. But then again, I don't think the setup really matters so much as how the characters respond to being in the situation. I think a trope like that can be fun if you put the right 2 characters in the mix. And I think that scene was actually okay. I quite liked it, but being revealed to be an android did seem like it was left over from
But you
a
knew
show
it wasn't them
in
when
the
you first saw
80s.
them anyway. You knew it
I
wasn't them
didn't.
when you
It did.
first saw- I
It
did.
did
I was
surprise
like,
me.
no.
But yeah, androids.
I
Android.
think we knew that they were going to be wrong in some point, right? Because they've been building up that the TVA is corrupt. And so we knew that no matter what those characters were that were presented, if those were the actual time lizards, that they were going to get destroyed because they were bad anyway. The fact that it's animatronics, you know, I don't know, it just seemed kind of campy to me. It made me think of Star Trek, the scene, that two-parter where Data's in old San Francisco.
Oh, Times Arrow.
Times Arrow. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
I thought it was genius.
You did?
Yeah, because it, you know that I guess it was the first episode, right, when Loki's getting processed at the TVA, and there's the sort of metal detector thing, and it's just to confirm he's not a robot. Like, what? Why a robot? What does that have to do with anything? And then so like if he were a robot, he would have known the Time Lords were also androids or whatever, right? And it's just that little bit of chaotic randomness that I think is quintessential to the Loki character. So for them to think like, okay, here it is, we're getting to the top, we're getting to the Time Lords, and then like, oh, it's not even really the real big bad, you know, at the top of the whole thing. I think it's great.
Clive, I'm curious, what did you think of that bit?
I didn't have a problem with it. I mean, it wasn't for me. I was still kind of really. I was still like, I'm trying to get the order of things. Is that just after Mobius has died that we get that reveal?
Yeah.
No. The first time you see. No, the first time you see them is when
they're robots. If you see what I mean.
Oh,
Dead.
yeah. I think it's when she cut the head off.
But I can't remember whether that happened after Mobius had already died.
Yes, it was after Mobius had died.
Okay, so I was kind of still reading from that. For me, it was just a bit of like classic campy sci-fi stuff. It did remind me of. I mean, it's that sort of Wizard of Oz thing, right? You know, don't look behind the curtain, right? Definitely. It's like actually like this big scary thing that was supposed to be like, you know, the most powerful thing, you know, that's so powerful that all the, you know, all these things from the Infinity Gauntlet are suddenly no more than trinkets. You know, they're like more powerful than gods, and yet, and then you basically get to see that it's nothing. It's just a show. They're just puppets. So, you know, it was if we're going to get the big reveal of them at this, then I wasn't then surprised that it then got ripped away. But I didn't mind that, if you see what I mean. Well, it just seemed it was a trope.
Yeah, actually, when you compare it to the Wizard of Oz, I like it much better now than me comparing it to Blackadder's Christmas Carol. You know. But no, you're absolutely right. It is that sort of thing. But I mean, do we really think that Mobius is dead?
No,
Mobius. I will say there's one thing this show can do, which will launch it to the very top of my favorite shows of all time list, which is that when they show Mobius in his foggy land with all the other Mobiuses, if Luke Wilson plays one of those Mobiuses, this show has.
I thought you were going to say if he was on a jet ski, it would be fine.
Because there's a bit in it where he, I think it's second episode or third episode, where he puts the glass on the mat, isn't it? And he says, "Who else has been here?" And there's loads of rings, and he says, "Only you." So yeah, I might be right. You know, he might be one of a string of Mobiuses that she's worked with.
Really
do you know what I mean?
I was like, why are they focusing on the glass?
Yeah, I think that's a clue.
Yeah,
it's a clue.
And right, wouldn't that just be perfect if Luke Wilson played one of the other Mobiuses?
That's like, that would be funny. The only funny thing in
that's
it so
the right
far,
level of
happens,
like you know, chaos to bring to this.
That would be good.
Yeah, that would be great.
I agree.
He's in Stargirl. He's DC at the moment. So there you go.
He's on the other side.
Oh, wow.
He's on the other side.
a whole nother multiverse.
That's
literally.
right. Yeah.
If Ryan Reynolds can cross over, so can Luke Wilson.
Well, that's true. That is true. Yeah.
So,
Dang,
okay.
Ryan.
Well, I mean, we've got 2 more episodes. We'll just have to see where this goes, I guess. But I have to say, I've kind of. I mean, the TVA. Do you think it's even real? Is the TVA even real, or is this, another mischievous Loki playing a trick on our Loki?
Who knows? Who cares?
I'm sort of with Ian. I don't care. I wish I did. I'm going to continue watching it because, like I said, I thought this was better than episodes 2 and 3. But yeah, it still hasn't got me sort of banked up with that amount of goodwill that I'm chomping at the bit to find out. It was a decent cliffhanger, though. I've got to give him that. It really was.
He's back.
Cool. We got Claire.
Hey, I'm back. I'm trying a different browser. I'm trying Microsoft Edge.
Okay. Other browsers are available, by the way, audience. But yes, that's cool. I read out your text, Claire, about your friend's theory, and thought that was. I think everybody thought that's quite a good theory. Maybe,
Interesting one.
I think she's gone again.
Oh, she's frozen.
Oh dear. Anyway,
so talking of theories, do we think Kang the Conqueror is behind this? Is he behind? Is he the one behind this? Being as we got Ravonna Renslayer in this, and she's connected to him in the comics. Do we get the reveal of? We know he's coming in the new Ant-Man movie.
Yeah, I'd say sooner rather than later Kang will be involved. But maybe they will tease that. I would if I was doing it, but then what do I know? Yeah, maybe. But I think that I'm pretty certain that Sylvie is going to be revealed to be the comics character, the Enchantress, at some point.
Does seem that way.
So, rather than actually Lady Loki, but that does sort of chime with the comics origin too, just in an updated way. And that's fine by me too. Again, I just wish I was a bit more hyped up about it all.
Yeah, me too. I'm actually the fact I'm ragging on it a little bit this week. I'm actually disappointed that I am, because I want to like this. I want to enjoy this stuff, and it's really not landing for me at the moment, if I'm honest. As I said, there are other things that I'm enjoying watching much more. But
and they're definitely trying to get folks like myself and Clive involved. Yeah, if you've noticed, Loki's tie has got the Fourth Doctor's
we said that last time. Yeah. I think Clive pointed that out last time.
No accident. Yeah, they're definitely trying to sort of get us. They're trying to grab us, Clive.
These Whovians. Yeah, there you go. Fair enough. Well, I mean, I'll be honest, from my point of view, I've not really got much else to say about this, but I want to make sure you've all absolutely had your say. So, Ian, any sort of closing thoughts on it from you, or any other topics about it that you want to discuss?
Not really. As I said, it's got a lot of that agenda in it. Just like, I mean, when he said to her she was amazing, just remind me of that scene I haven't seen it, but somebody's told me about it with Yaz in Doctor Who, when she's done completely nothing and she's just like,
Yaz was exactly like that.
Yeah, it was exactly like that, wasn't it? So, things like that, and just I'm just so disappointed with all 3 of them so far, all the 3 MCU series so far. I just think I just don't think much of them, just seriously. I can't be asked with this one, to tell you the truth, but whatever. Okay. But that's just me. That's just me.
No, that's fine, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. Clive, what about you? Any other things you want to say about this?
Well, yeah, I did have one thought, which is it kind of surprised me that the Loki and Sylvie sort of relationship, which is sort of strongly pointing to this love thing, particularly when they have this, branch in the sacred timeline that's like the most, like crazy it's ever been, that they flag up. which is clearly supposed to be the moment where they, they hold hands and they have a connection, right? It's, they're pointing to this thing. I was surprised it didn't that it wasn't more icky, this idea that he's loving himself, that it's almost like this weird, like slightly incestuous thing. But
Loki kind of does, right?
Yeah,
Loki
but
kind of does love himself.
That it was going to be, it was almost like, like in Red Dwarf, where Rimmer has this sort of in this planet where he's got these. Everyone on there looks like him, including all the women, like all the women, and it's. But it's sort of the actors and that they make it work, I think. So yeah, I was kind of surprised that they went that way, because I thought, oh, it's gonna be bantery, but then they went there and it worked for me. So it was good.
Okay. Cool. No, it's good that there's some optimism in the room from that. Talking of which, Barbara, what about you? Is there any anything else you want to mention about this episode, or any sort of closing thoughts?
Yeah, Pete and I have been talking a lot about where this is going, because he made the point that was it Endgame, Loki dies. And so he's saying, that Marvel can basically do anything they want with the Loki character in this series, and they're not beholden to whatever happens, right? Because essentially in like the actual timeline, he's dead. But I think that if Marvel is going to invest the time and money and resources into, giving a character their own show, hopefully they'll do something really interesting and spectacular with it. So I'm thinking either Loki is going to sort of end up controlling the TVA, but I think after this episode, that theory is sort of falling away for me. And I think actually more likely is because we know the multiverse is coming, right? One of the next big movies slated in the MCU Phase 4 is the Multiverse of Madness. So if you have a chaos-based character like Loki, he's going to be one of the few characters that can actually navigate the multiverse and keep the big picture in mind when like everybody else is struggling and trying to figure out like how things work. And time theory is like time travel is really, really tricky. So it's like right now it's Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, and then possibly Loki will be the big contenders who can help rally the troops.
Sure. No, again, very valid points. I like that. So thank you, Barbara. Dan, any closing thoughts about this Loki episode for you?
Yeah. If this hadn't have been better than last week, then I would have drifted away, and I would be catching up with the first two on a rainy afternoon somewhere. But no, I will be there. I mean, I was covering this on the Spacebook and giving it prominence as well. I had faith in this show, and I feel that I've been let down again. And so, as Ian said, we've got Miss Marvel and She-Hulk to come at least this year. She-Hulk maybe next year, come to think of it. Oh, we've got the animated show What If, which I used to read the What If comics too. I was hoping that would be good. So it's dulled my enthusiasm for what's to come, and it's dulling my enthusiasm a little for further Star Wars shows too, I have to say. But no, I'm here for the rest. And this was a step in the right direction, but it's still falling. I think that a lot of the parts are there. It just needs to coalesce. 4 episodes in the 6-episode run, it should be happening by now. It is feeling like a bit of a letdown, but there is enough there to keep me there for another 2 weeks. If it was 4 weeks, I think I'd be tapping out, as my son would say.
Okay, we're in a similar place, I think. Pete, what about you?
Yeah, I think that maybe you and I are a bit on a seesaw here, where you were higher up and I was lower down, and now I'm going up and you're going down. Yin yang. Yin yang. I'm at the heart of this. I think we've talked about it, right? Is that is supposed to be fun and people are supposed to enjoy the content. And when I've torn parts of the content apart, but I'm here for the ride, and I'm getting a lot of fun talking about it, even the bad parts with you guys and with Barbara when the camera's not rolling. So
Fight.
yeah.
Okay, no worries. I've had a note from Claire. Unfortunately, she's not able to conclude on this. So no worries, Claire. We thank you for your time, and we'll obviously see you next week, Claire. So she's saying bye, everyone.
Bye, Claire.
Thanks for joining in. Okay, so I want to give everybody the opportunity to plug their work, etc. So Dan, you were our guest this week. You have a lot of stuff going on, so please tell the world about it and where they can find it.
Tell the world, yes, come to the Spacebook channel on YouTube and hear me ramble on with an assortment of
Here we go.
friends and companions, including that miserable git up there in David Diaz, who's sort of my partner in crime on a lot of the shows. Yes, we've got lots of Doctor Who content. If Doctor Who is your thing, there's Type 40, the Doctor Who podcast, and Type 40 Live every Tuesday afternoon. We go live for 2 hours.
Off by heart.
Talking all things time and space, and anything can happen. It often does, and things go wrong quite a lot, but we have a lot of fun, and we get a lot of people in the chat and talk about all sorts. So that's pretty good. We've got, it's good, even if I say so myself, we've got the Sci-Fi and Fantasy podcast Hard Drive, which I love making so much with both Keith and Ian, and the Rabbi from Another Planet, one of the most scurrilous people on the whole of YouTube, I think, in sci-fi terms. So we get together, we talk about the Orville and other modern shows. We sort of play around with them a little bit. That's good for a laugh. What else? Blake 7. If you like Blake 7, if you're of a certain age and you remember Blake 7, Teleport is a Blake 7 podcast. That's due back very, very soon. And there's other stuff on the way. Don't just take my word for it. Go over to the Spacebook and subscribe to the channel and drop a few likes and hit a few videos up. You can't lose.
That was one spiel, mate.
Barbara,
bad, was it?
If people want to get in touch or find more work or whatever, can they do that, or would you rather not?
Yeah, fine. I'm on Twitter as B McNeely and the LSWOT socials. So
there we go. And Pete, come on, tell us where they can find it.
Are we not doing the thing where we plug other works of art this week that we do sometimes?
You can. Looking at the time, no, we'll do that every other week. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. That's too bad, because I wanted to plug Excuses and Half Truths, hosted by Rob Wickings and Clive Ashenden. Find it wherever good podcasts are, especially the January Who's Easy episode from January 14th, 2014, featuring Keith Isles. Thank you. Good night.
I'll put a link in the show notes, guys, to that.
Well played.
You, and what else? Where else can they find things, Pete?
LSWOTcast on all the social medias. Email us, lswotcast@gmail.com.
It's almost like we set this up. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Clive, where can people find more of your work?
They can check out my most recent short films on Vimeo. If they put in my name, Clive Ashton, they'll find me there. If they want to check out some old podcasts I've done, I used to have a podcast called The A to Z of SFF, which is still available on some channels, as is the Excuses and Half Truths Speakeasy podcast, where some scurrilous people would occasionally guest, right, Keith?
Apparently so. Mega Geek, where can people find more of your work?
Okay, right. So I made a web series called Rebecca Gold. It's on YouTube channel. Just write in Rebecca Gold and you'll be able to find it. But I'd just like to point out that I've made feature films, and I've made 3, and 2 of those feature films feature women in the front. So it's not that I'm against all that stuff. I'm all for it. And I made, these films over 10 years ago. you know, so I was there first. A lot of people say that to me. I was there first, but there you go. Such is life. So, but yeah, so I've made 3 feature films. And if you want to see these feature films, I had to take it off YouTube because people are claiming copyright on them and stuff like that when they don't claim. And I can't be bothered to fight them, as I've put them somewhere else. And if you want to see these films, then basically just message me on Twitter. A few people last week messaged me on Twitter, actually, and I sent them the link. And I'm at Ian David Diaz on Twitter. So just message me and I'll send you the link to these films. And you can watch them. I got a couple of views on Vimeo a couple of days ago.
Oh, there you go.
I was like, whoa, somebody watched it.
and what's interesting, Ian, is those female leads in those films, they do actually beat up and make men look quite stupid,
yes.
Don't they?
They
So,
do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's balanced, though. It's balanced.
Anyway,
Keith gets beaten up. Or Keith gets shot. He gets shot in one of those films. So there you
spoiler.
go.
There you go.
Spoiler.
Anyway, so if you want to find any of my short films, if you go to the other YouTube channel, British Isles, that's EYLES. There's half a dozen short films that I made there. If you want to check those out, and any feedback is welcome. So please do that. And if you're here and you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching or listening to this. We really do appreciate it. If you've got any comments, please put them in the section down below, and I'll be sure to read them out on the next episode. And while you're here, check out some of the other work on this channel. If you're into physical media, Blu-ray, DVD, 4K UHD, etc., there's lots of reviews and unboxings and all sorts of things going on, as well as live streams about other movies and TV shows. So please check it out. Consider giving us a like, and consider subscribing to the channel as well, because it all helps and it's much appreciated. But that just leaves me to say thank you to the panel of guests and Claire, who had to drop off, unfortunately. But we really appreciate everybody coming on. Thanks, Dan, for joining us this week as well, and Barbara. It's always good when we can get bonus guests on here, and we will hope that you'll join us next week, where we'll be discussing episode 5 of Loki. So we will see you next time on the next Let's See What's Out There Loki. Bye for now.